Hey Janelle, we're ready for you. So just to welcome you here to RHP, and you'll see two rooms and some students. If you guys can all turn your cameras on, it would be a lot better. So we're not just talking to blank screens.
Yeah.
So yeah, please listen up and have some questions for Janelle Martinez here after we hear her speak about her experience with animation. So thanks for joining us, Janelle.
No problem. I'll wait for everyone to turn their cameras on. I'm not sure if everyone is gonna turn them on or not.
Maddie, Johnny, and Liz, can you guys turn your cameras on? I happen to know all these students, so maybe.
Perfect.
Maddie, Johnny, and Liz, can you guys turn your cameras on so we can see you? We're waiting for you here.
If not, I can just start. That's okay. Oh, that's okay, Maddie. She's like, Maddie said their camera
Johnny also
not
problems
working.
with his camera too, so.
Yeah, no problem. That's okay. All right, I will begin then. Awesome, thanks, Maddie. All right, hi everyone. My name is Janelle. I work at Disney TV Animation, and currently I'm working on a Disney Junior show that hasn't been announced yet. I've worked at a couple animation studios in the last maybe like 6-ish years. So I've worked on both features that went either straight to DVD or they went onto Netflix and Amazon and other big streaming sites. And I've also worked on TV series over here at Disney. I previously worked on Elena of Avalor. I don't know if any of you seen the show or you like the show, but I was on season 3 and I finished up like the finale of that show, and I pretty much did all of the end of post-production for that show and finished it off. And that one also went to like Disney Plus and Disney Junior, and it showed up on TV and everything like that. So those are a couple of things that I've worked on. Talking a little bit about animation and how it kind of relates to more of like the STEM education. I was looking up some words that I think are some big keywords when it comes to STEM, such as like collaboration and communication, problem solving and creativity. These may be some big themes that maybe you guys talk about on your end. They're definitely big themes when it comes to working in animation. I'll start with collaboration and communication. Working in animation is definitely a lot of collaboration and communication. Most of our crews, like all of the art team and production team and directors and things like that. There's so many of us on the crew. Currently on my project that I'm working on for Disney Junior has about 40 different people working on the show. And so it's definitely a lot of collaborating with everybody. You know, we do a lot of different meetings depending on what section of the project we're on. Currently, right now, we are kind of in a middle place where we're looking at new scripts that may be coming in. So the team gets together and we do these fun like table reads, and we read new scripts to see like what are the new and upcoming stories that we're going to be working on are. And then we're also working on designs, so we get to see what all of our artists are creating for these episodes that we've read scripts for. And so we'll see different designs, like all of the different characters that they're drawing for an episode. We'll see all of the props that they're making. We'll see any new backgrounds that they're creating for the stories. So we get to see all of like the main like black and white color that's coming in. And we're also seeing a lot of the color designs as well. So it's a cool thing to see, to read a script and to just kind of like picture it in your mind. And then we get to see that next stage of like, what are these designs looking like? Another cool section that we're also working on right now is like the storyboarding and the animatic stage. And so in storyboards, it's collaborating with all the board artists and making sure they have all of these designs so that they can, you know, start drawing whatever the story is. And so the board artists are kind of like a really big piece of creating the story, because they're the ones who put in all of the characters are the ones who are choosing what camera angles we're using and which camera angles work best for certain scenes and things like that. So it's really awesome to kind of see the designs start to come to life because they're the ones who put everything together and they collaborate with all of the designs, all of the music, all of the voices that our voice actors are creating. They're putting all of those pieces together and they're putting it in one pitch. And so they're kind of showing us what that looks like. Then we go into an animatic stage, which is pretty much like the same thing as the storyboard, but the editor kind of gets a piece of that and he starts timing everything out and putting all the music and all the voices together. So it's all collaborating throughout and communicating with everybody, and so that everybody knows what's going on and everybody has exactly what they need all the time. Going into a little bit of like research when things are being developed for a show, like Elena of Avalor, a lot of it is from like a lot of different Latinx culture. And, you know, in development, it was a lot of like people traveling to certain places to see what's culturally accurate for that show, a lot of just researching like folklore and different stories of the culture, just to make sure that whatever they were using for that project and that show was culturally accurate. A lot of people do get to go over like our designs and make sure that it's all correct and nothing's incorrect or nothing's wrong. So a lot of research definitely goes into a lot of these shows based off of what the theme is or what the cultures are, things like that. Going into problem solving. I think there's definitely a lot of problem solving that goes into animation at different stages of it. Talking about storyboarding, which I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, there's a lot of problem solving based off of like kind of the director's role. So if anybody here is interested in like directing or they want to direct one day, our directors do a lot of problem solving in a sense that they're looking at the boards that the artists are giving us, and they're problem solving by saying like, oh, does this camera angle work? Or is this the framing that we want for a certain scene to reflect a certain emotion that we might be wanting to get from this section? We do a lot of boarding for songs, and so they're the ones that kind of go through and they make notes on, you know, the speed of the boards for the song, what the camera angles are, and, you know, what's working and what's not working. We kind of work as a team to fix those problems. Going into post-production, which is where we look at kind of the final look of the project, and you see all of the characters built in these 3D models, and we put them into the world, and you know, they all have their textures now, and we're looking at lighting and we're looking at color, and pretty much we're looking to make sure that there's no technical issues. And so a lot of it is team-based, where we're all reviewing what the final look of the show is and making our notes on those things and making sure that like the effects look good and the characters look good and everything's the right color and the lighting is exactly how we want it to be. And so problem solving wise, we go through every single scene before we have a final episode, and we make notes on them until everything is approved. Going into creativity, I think every stage of animation has creativity in it. Even if you're thinking about the scripts, I mean, the writers are really creative, and even just building our world from just a written script, like they don't even have designs yet. And they're the ones who are creating these stories for us from, I think, their own experiences. So I don't know if anybody here is interested in writing for TV or for movies or for shows or anything like that. But I think it's really cool. On our show, we have a really diverse group of writers. And I think that's just super important to have different people from different cultures, you know, able to tell their stories. And I think because we do have a diverse, you know, writing staff, we do get a lot of different stories, which I think is awesome. And so they put their creativity in making up like character names, like what our world is going to be, what the cool stories that we're going to tell are. And then the same for designs, like all of our artists are the ones who are making up like what our characters are going to look like or what our world looks like. And eventually when we get a certain batch of designs, we start to see like what does our world look like, and you start to see like how all of the characters match up with each other, and you know, we start figuring out a style for the show, what we like, what we don't like. It's really a lot of like initial world building when you're in a season 1 of a show. Even when you're a director or if you work in production like me, there's a lot of creative choices that we're making. I think the cool thing about the show that I'm on now is that everyone's kind of open to give their creative input, no matter who you are. It's not like only the directors get to give their input. It's like we kind of have it open for everybody to say that, like, no matter who you are, if you're in a meeting and you have an idea, you know, it's pretty open to talk about like, oh, maybe we should have this character look this way, or maybe this character should be dressed that way, or this prop doesn't look right, maybe we should fix it in this way. And so I think the cool thing is everyone gets to give their input and everyone's opinion matters, and you know, everyone has cool ideas and they can literally come from anywhere. I think that's pretty cool. I think there were a couple questions in the chat that I was seeing. Christina asked, what application do you use for animation? Do you mean for the animation itself, Christina? I'll let you answer that. So the thing about working on TV shows for Disney and for a lot of other studios, most of our animation comes from our partner studio. And so right now we're working with an animation studio in Canada. And I've also worked with animation studios from other places. So our partner studio, they're the ones that we would send our designs to. And so they're the ones who, they look at all of our 2D designs and they start building our world in this like CGI world for us. So they're the ones who are like building all the characters and they're building all the layouts, and we collaborate with them. They send us models back as like images and we make notes on them. And they're also the ones that once they're done building all these models for us, they go in and they do all of the animation, they do all of the color, they do all of the lighting. I think every studio, depending on where they are, works off of a different program. I think here in our studio, for all of the designs and things like that, we're working off of, I guess a lot of our artists really work off of Photoshop. And then our editors are working off of an Avid to do all of the edits. And our storyboard artists are working off of like Storyboard Pro and things like that. But yeah, those are kind of some of the applications that we're using there. Going into animation production, which is the section that I work in for animation. And a lot of people don't know animation production is a thing, but production is pretty much you get to work with everybody on the crew. So we're the ones who are constantly, you know, keeping the project on schedule. We're collaborating with everybody to keep all of the designs filed. We make lists for the artists and the board artists so they know exactly what things they should be creating for us. We're also the ones who are taking notes for all of our reviews, whether it's design reviews, storyboards, animatics, or once we go into post-production, we're also taking notes for animation and lighting and color and things like that. We're also communicating constantly with our partner studio who's building all of our models and who is doing all of our animation. So we're sending notes back and forth between them, and we're that communication person that is talking to like our executive producers and letting them know what the partner studio needs and what questions they have and getting them answers back. So we're pretty much keeping the wheels going on the production all the time. And we do cool things like we watch all of the board reviews. You know, we're scheduling all of our production meetings. We're scheduling all of the meetings that are needed for our project. We also are making lists for each episode. So a lot of us will go through and we'll read a script and we'll make lists based off of like what designs are needed. So we'll go through and we'll highlight and we'll say, okay, which characters are in this script and in this story, which props are they using? And so props are pretty much just like objects the characters interact with. So anything the character is interacting with, like they're holding a pencil or they're holding like a new object somebody has made, things like that. And then we make lists based off of what locations they might be in as well. And so we're the ones who are handing out those lists to the artists so they know what to create for us. And we're also the people who are working with all of the board artists, all the editors, the directors. So if you're someone who likes to communicate with everybody and you like to see the entire process of what goes on through a project, production is definitely, I think, for you, because a lot of us in production just like to work with everybody, and we like to see the project go from script all the way to the final look. Let's see, Patrick asked, how long does it take in total to make one episode from first basic concept to final product? So we're actually working on about 50 episodes at a time. So it does take a little bit longer, but when you think about just one episode, I would say it takes probably from script to final about maybe 1.5 to 2 years. And so when we look at our schedules, we have all 50 episodes and they're all kind of like scheduled out like stairs. So it's like you have 1 week that you're working on a script for episode 1, and then the next week the episode 2 starts, and it kind of goes down like that. So all in one time, we could be working on scripts for one episode, and then you go all the way down and it could be we're in post-production on the next one. So our schedules are about 2 years long from start to finish, I think. What's a good work routine for creative people? I feel like when I think about a lot of our artists, I think as long as we've sent them what they need and they have everything scheduled out for them, like they know like what things are coming up. Like when I think about our storyboard artists, we have a schedule for them where they're working on one episode for about 6 weeks. And so as long as they know when all of their check-ins are and when all of their pitches are coming up, I think it helps them work better because they've got all the designs and they know exactly like which weeks they have to do pitches for the crew to present their boards. I think a good routine for them is just knowing when those things are, so they know when they have to have like their next batch of revisions done by then. How do you work through a project? Like, what's your daily routine? So I think my routine specifically changes a little bit every day based off of what I'm doing and based off of what things are scheduled for the day. Like today specifically, I have a pretty packed day filled with storyboard check-ins, which are pretty much me, my director, and our board artists. And so today specifically, we're meeting with them to look at their progress on whatever episode they're working on, and the director will give notes. And so I'll type up their notes and I'll send them the notes after. And then there's other days where we're looking at animatics. And so a small group of us, including our executive producer and our director and our board artists, get together and we review the animatics together and we make notes on them. Most of it is just like reviewing things, making notes, making sure people get those notes, and also just like making sure like artists have the designs they need or the lists they need. So it's a lot of just sending out emails, like making sure people know exactly what they need to be doing and what lists they have so they can go through and like check those things off. So I'm the one that's kind of sending that stuff to them. Okay, Maddie, you said you want to work on both character and storyboard writing. You can major. When you say storyboard writing, do you mean like writing for a TV show?
Yeah, like the scripts and stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want to do both. Okay. I think I would say you'd probably have to do maybe like a double major or even like a major in one that you really feel you're more interested, and then a minor in whatever it is that you feel like you just want to dabble in. Because character design is a lot more of the art section of animation.
Yeah.
And the writing, is more on the writing side, but I think knowing to the design aspect of it and how to create a character, I think definitely helps a writer at any point, because a lot of our writers, once they see like what our characters look like and how animation works, I think their brain starts to like change a little bit on how they're writing. Like when we show our writers our animatics and our storyboards, it just changes like how they think about how they're going to write. So I think even just having those two skills together would just make you such a powerful writer in general. I'm not sure if there's one or the other that you prefer. Is there one that you feel like you're more drawn to?
No, I love both. So
Okay.
maybe
Yeah,
I'll
maybe you can
go.
explore both and see
Yeah.
if they're both something that you still want to do. I don't know that I've met any character designers who also write, but maybe you can be one of the first ones, and that'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, you said you have a question that you wanted to ask over the mic. Let's see.
Yeah, I was just curious with a lot of what you spoke about, and from what I've heard with some Disney animation, is how sometimes personal stories come into the animation process. I know, like you were speaking about, a lot of it is very technical with people having to deal with that aspect, but since everyone's opinion is sort of presented in the process, I was wondering if you yourself had put any personal stories into your animation, or if you could speak to maybe someone else who brought that in to become an idea in an actual cartoon character or event.
Yeah, I think one, I just think that even having people on the crew that reflect even the characters and what their backgrounds are, I think having someone on the crew who can also speak to that and give us their insight on that is awesome. For our show, I can't get really into specifics of what those cultures are yet, but the show I'm working on is very diverse. And a lot of our writers and our directors reflect the same cultures that we see our characters coming up as. And so as we're going through even just the writing and the designs, if one person on the crew is looking at a design that is to their culture that they can speak to, a lot of times that's the person who's like, oh no, that's wrong, like we should do it this way, or oh, that character wouldn't say it this way, let's pronounce it another way. With designs also, they kind of look through and they're like, oh no, we need to change this design to look a little more like this, let me send you some reference. So I think that's really awesome because we don't always get that. And I think just having that extra perspective on making it culturally correct just makes the show, I think, a lot more powerful in a way that, we have people on the crew who can speak to that and who can put in their input on that. When it comes to like voice actors, like I mentioned before, a lot of our directors will sit in on those. And if there's a word that we're using that's to a certain culture, they're the ones who get to say like, oh no, they would say it in this way. Same with the writing. When we're in the writing stage, some of the writers who are of those same cultures as well, they get to put in things that maybe they would say to like their grandparents, and like a certain word that a certain culture would use, or a certain gesture that maybe a certain culture would use. They get to put those little details in, which I think is really awesome. Or maybe even using like a certain food that a certain culture would eat. The writer kind of gets to put that in as well. And I think for our audience, seeing that, I think it's just such a powerful thing, because you know, it helps kids in general feel seen when they see someone on TV that looks like them and are maybe eating like a snack or something that them and their family like enjoy. I feel like it's great to feel seen, especially on a TV show that you might really like. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Let's see. All right. Another question there is, what's the real difference between an executive producer and a regular producer? So usually the executive producer is always, well, not always, but most of the time is also the creator of a show. So the executive producer pretty much runs the show and they get the final decision on most things like designs and animatics, and they're the ones who give the final approval for things. The producer does also run the show, but they're the ones who like create the schedule. They're more based on helping out the crew and making sure like the crew is running on schedule, whereas the executive producer is just like the head of the show, and they get to say like what's approved and what's not, and things like that. They're also the ones who most likely went through development for the show and most likely wrote the show before it gets greenlit to start production. So they're kind of the big head and the big boss of the show. Let's see, what's the difference between video game animation and TV animation? I haven't really dabbled too much in video game animation. One of my friends who I did go to school with for animation, she does work in gaming. I can't really speak too much into that, but I guess from what I've noticed from gaming here and there is that I guess there is, you know, a lot of snippets in between the gameplay where you're still telling the story in between your gameplay. I feel like a lot of times gaming compared to TV might have even better quality, especially when you think of like a lot of the PS5 games that have come out. I know like the Miles Morales game has some pretty awesome animation in between the gameplay snippets, which is cool. TV animation has a really thin and shorter schedule. And so we're constantly working really quickly to get all of the episodes out, but we're constantly also trying to push the quality of it. And I guess I would say TV may just be like shorter stories. For us, we're doing like 11-minute episodes. And so we would do like about 50 11-minute episodes. And then in a game, you know, you would do the different sections between, I guess, the gameplay. I don't know what other differences I could really speak to. All right, so there's another mic question. Patrick, I'm ready when you are.
We have a student here.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
My name's Nate.
Nate.
I was wondering, like, how did you get into animation? Like, were you always interested in art or video production or yeah, all that? And what did you like end up studying?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Nate. I think in high school, I really got, into like drawing. I had always really been into drawing, but I really got into it in high school. And I think just talking to one of my counselors, I was just curious about like what different majors someone who likes to draw could get into. And I think I was between like graphic design and animation. And I think just because I've always been into animation and I grew up watching like all the Disney movies and, you know, all the Pixar movies and all of that, it really interested me to just get into knowing like how do they make movies. And I think it was more of the process of animation that drew me to it. And so I had decided I wanted to get into animation more than graphic design, just because I really wanted to know how things were made and how these movies were made. And so I ended up going to Woodbury University, which is out here in Burbank, and I went to school for animation. And so there you do get a general education of animation, and you do learn everything in the process except for, I guess, writing. You do take classes on storyboards, you take classes on character design, you take classes on background design, you even take classes on 3D animation and traditional 2D animation. And so you kind of get a broad view of every single thing, and you get to dabble in a little bit of everything, editing and all of that stuff. Usually in your last couple of years, you're asked to make like a group animated project with friends who are also in animation. And then usually for a senior project, you're creating your own senior film on your own. So it's pretty much like your own story that you want to animate, and you do every single thing in there, like designing and storyboarding and editing, and you finish up your own animated project towards the end of that. And so it's pretty cool because you get to figure out what things maybe you're more drawn to than others, because there's a lot of people who finish school and they want to do character design while other people would rather do storyboarding. And so the good thing about getting a general education is like you did get to try out all of these different things in animation, and you kind of get to choose like what is that one thing that you really want to do, and you can like hone in on that one thing, and you create a portfolio of maybe characters is your thing, and you want to create a portfolio of characters, and then you start looking for like either internships or a job in that field. But I think for me, when I finished, I wasn't really super sure what I was the most interested in animation, because I really liked all of it. And so I had gotten my first job as a production assistant, which is awesome because one, it's a really good starting point in animation, and two, you get to work with everybody. And that's when I found out that in animation production, you get to work through an entire project. And I just really like being able to see a project all the way through. And it's kind of magical to just see it go from words on a paper to like this final animation that people are going to see one day. So that's kind of what drew me to stick to animation production. And the fact that I had this general education of all of animation kind of gave me that extra step up to know like all of the animation lingo, like all of the animation, like traditional things that you should look out for, like color theory is a big thing, especially when you're in post-production and you're looking at color on a project. I kind of knew all the bits and pieces of what people were looking for and what notes people were calling. And it kind of gave me like that step up in animation. But yeah, so I've kind of stuck with production pretty much. Let's see. Is there another mic question?
Hi, my name's Brett, and I was wondering, like, do you guys get to see like the analytics behind each episode, like how many people are watching it at a time, or how many people watch each episode as a whole? Because I've always kind of like been curious how many, especially compared to like YouTube, like how many people are still like watching cable. So I've always I've always wondered like how many, like on average, how many views would you say?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a great question. I don't honestly know the numbers myself. So I think the crew, like all of us who are working on the project, we don't get to generate those numbers. We have a whole other sector of Disney who actually goes in and they'll track that kind of stuff, and they'll track all the numbers and all the views. Most of our projects that go up on Disney Channel first, I think, before they go anywhere else, and then they go on Disney Now. And Disney has this whole sector of people who track like how many viewers and how many people are watching on Disney Now and things like that. I wouldn't have the specific number for that though. But they do track it, and they do, I know for a while they would send us updates studio wide of like what shows are being watched the most, and what ages of like kids are watching, things like that. So we do have people who do that. It's just not people on the crew themselves.
How do you guys track the ages of people? If like I
don't know. That's a great question. That's a great question. I'm not sure how. Maybe my guess would be possibly based off of like say Disney Now, when you make an account, you put in your age. And so I think on Disney Now, it's easier to track like age groups of people who are watching. I don't know that they would be able to do that like on Disney Channel itself, but Disney Now for sure with like, I think account ages and things like that.
It is too, because I mean, based on that, I'm just, has someone from higher up had you eliminate a character or change things based on this information? 'Cause
Not really based off of the information themselves. We do have like groups, like cultural groups that we do send some of our designs to that have had us change a design based off of a certain culture where a group might look at it like say we're sending in like a Latinx character and they'll send it to a group who is specifically like all Latinx folks, and they'll look at it and they'll give us notes based off of what they think, or they'll say like this isn't culturally accurate, or they'll say like this is great, we love this. And we have groups for all of like the different like cultures of characters that we create. And so they're the ones who get to look at it and give us their input. But yeah, we've definitely had things sent in that we've gotten kickback for, which is not a bad thing because, you know, you want to be correct in all forms of like characters and things like that you're putting out there for everybody. Does anybody else have any questions? I see Maddie said my uncle's an EP for DreamWorks. Not sure if you know him. No, I actually haven't worked at DreamWorks, but I'm sure I know somebody that probably does know him. That's really cool, Maddie. Let's see. Are there any other last questions that anybody has?
yeah, because it could be a great time. We just have a couple more minutes left. Does anyone have a final question, a burning question that you
I do. How
Go
do
ahead.
you how did you get an internship? Did you just speak up as much as you could, or you know, what was the process of that?
Yeah, internships are a little bit like applying for a job. Most studios will post up when they have internships coming up on their websites. And so it's mostly like looking out on their websites. A lot of schools do reach out to their alumni who are working at different studios, and they're the ones who will kind of contact the studio. When I was working at it was called Splash Entertainment, the studio that I worked at before I worked at Disney. I was the one who was able to choose my own interns. And so I would always contact my university and let them know, like to let all of the animation students know that we're looking for somebody, and they would send in their resumes and they would send in their cover letters, and we would do interviews with them, and we would choose who we wanted to have as an intern. A lot of other studios, you would just apply online. And again, you would usually send in a resume and a cover letter, and they're the ones who usually contact you for an interview. And most of the time when you're looking for an internship, they do have interviews just as if you were applying for a job. And I guess right now it would be over Zoom, but usually, you know, you'd get to go to the studio and, you know, you'd go in person and you do an interview there, which is awesome because then most of the time you get to see the campus. Like just talking about DreamWorks, like DreamWorks has an amazing studio campus, which is pretty awesome. And, you know, Disney has a cool studio campus as well. We have various locations. But yeah, it's a lot like looking for a job and applying and doing an interview. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Well, Janelle, thank you so much. We want to let you go.
course.
That was fantastic. And
Thank you.
from someone who's been doing Zoom for a year, I feel like that went really well.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Everyone and everything. And yeah, we really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, if anybody ever has any questions, I can leave you guys my email, and feel free to email me and ask me some more questions if you are interested at all. So I'm always open to you know.
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, you could either put it into the chat or give it to me,
Yeah.
whichever you feel most comfortable with. I mean, if you're offering, I know we have some students who would probably take you up on it.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat if you guys want to save that.
Yeah, that's very generous of you. Thank you
Yeah,
so
of
much.
course. Yeah, I'm always open to answering questions to anybody about animation, or, you know, if anybody's interested. I mean, the sad part right now is because we're all working from home, I can't like give anybody tours, but
Yeah,
if I
right.
could, I would be happy to. But in the meantime, you know, feel free to email me and ask me whatever you like, and I'll try to get back to you as best as I can.
Soon enough, the tours will start
Yeah,
again, hopefully.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, Janelle. Thank you.
Thank
We'll give you our
Yeah, thanks for all the questions
Zoom
so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.